Yes, guys, welcome to our today's class. Good afternoon, good morning. I don't know what time you're going to watch this particular video. And yeah, so if it's your first time, my name is Isangoi. I am a Cisco and Microsoft instructor. Beside Microsoft and Cisco, I'm also an IBM instructor and CompTIA trainer. And most of the time, I'm lecturing, and I'm currently leading a IT faculty. So remember, guys, this is CCNA 2. So if it's your first time again, you can also start from CCNA 1 and watch our videos. And remember to register. If you want to get free registration, you can contact me via email or via my WhatsApp. You can check the number below. You can get my contact details, and what you need to do, just send me an email or maybe a WhatsApp message with your full details, like in order for you to be registered, right? So without wasting my time, today we are going to talk about a new lesson that we call router on a stick, right? So I will try to share my screen and we are going to start. So it has been a week. So I'm not recording because I was very, very busy at the campus. So sorry for that, guys. And this entire week, this week and next week, I'm a bit free. So like every day you can have a new lesson. So try to share my screen. Yes, so we're going to talk about router on a stick. What does it mean by router on a stick? Guys, we spoke about VLANs. We spoke about virtual networks, right? So we spoke about virtual networks. Remember, guys, you got different departments, different VLANs. Those departments, those VLANs, they cannot communicate, right? For you to make them talk, you can use one method, what we call router on a stick. So router on a stick will allow VLANs, different VLANs to talk. So this is the meaning. Let me just write it down for you guys. So, okay. So router on a stick will allow you to connect different VLANs or networks, right? So there is no other way you can connect different departments after separating them, right? So you can use a method like a network configurations to connect multiple VLANs. If it's your first time, go back to the video that talks about VLANs in order for you to move to this particular video, right? So as I said, guys, we are talking about router on a stick. What does it mean? We are going to see how you can connect departments, like you have your company, you have marketing department, finance department, like sales department. You want those departments to communicate. So you want computers from those departments to communicate. Maybe I'm working under finance. I want to send like an email to a guy from the HR department. Those two computers need to be connected, right? But we are in different departments. How to make them talk? How to connect different departments, right? So I'm gonna go straight to the practicals and make sure that you got your computer and your packet tracer is up and running. So what we're gonna do here, guys, we're gonna have maybe, let's just say, two computers, right? And we're gonna have maybe like a switch here, and we're gonna run like our cables to the switch. Okay, let me plug it to a port that I know 0.1, and this one will go to, okay, my ports are not visible. You can go to tools or to options, preferences, always show port labels. That, yeah, just for me to see the names that are there on top. So what I'm gonna do now, let's say this guy here, this computer here, like it's for another department, and this one like belong to another department. Maybe this one is HR, one of the computer in an HR department, and this one is IT, right? So what I'm gonna do, you need to go to your switch, you create two departments because we do have like HR department and IT. So you go to your switch, you create two departments. Means you create two networks, two different networks, or two VLANs, two different VLANs, two different virtual networks. So you go to your switch, right? You go to CLI. Okay, conft, we're gonna create the first VLAN or the first network. Give it a name, VLAN 10. You press enter. What is the name? You give it a name, it's HR. You press enter. We're gonna create the second network. VLAN may be 20. You press enter. Name is IT, and you press like enter. So those are the department that you created from the switch, right? You can view your configurations by saying what? Do show VLAN, or you can say do show VLAN brief. So brief is just a summary. You want a summary, you don't want so many things to come out. Okay, so you can see your VLANs are here, right? Your VLANs are here and your department are here, but there is no port yet that you assigned to those VLANs. Okay. Now from here, you can exit. Now what we're gonna do, remember guys, when you create your VLANs, right, you give them some names. After that one, what you need to do, you need to assign port to the VLANs. So if you don't assign, how a computer will know which department that computers belong to, right? So you see here, there is first Ethernet 0/1. This port here, this 0/1 must belong to HR. So, and this first Ethernet 0/2 must belong to IT, right? So this port, you must make it one of the son of the HR department. So, and this one must belong to IT. So we're gonna go to interface first Ethernet 0/1, like int 0/1, you press enter. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna say switch port, like mode access, switch port. Maybe we don't see properly. The access VLAN. Remember your HR, it was VLAN 10. VLAN 10. You press enter. You exit. You go to the second interface. This one. Interface. First Ethernet 0/2. You press enter. Switch port. Mode access. Remember, switch port mode access means you are making this particular port like an access port. Means this port from the switch will be used to plug printers, cameras, computers, right? And switch port again, like access VLAN 20 means you assign this port to VLAN 20, and you press what? Enter, and you exit, right? When you are done, you need to give the IPs to the first computer. Let's go there. We can choose a class C IP, 192.168.1.3 maybe. You press enter. So let's write it down. So here it's 192.168.1.3, and this one is gonna be 192.168.2.3. You can see the difference. It's from here because it's a 24 slash, right? But don't worry for now. So this is the IP for this computer, and this is for this one. Let's check 192.168.2.3. Yes. So now we're gonna try to ping between those two computers just to see if those two computers can talk. You go to the first computer, you go to command prompts, you try to ping, you try to send a message, .1.3, and you press enter, right? You can see request timeout. Request timeout means that there is no communication. They cannot talk. Why they cannot talk? Because they are like in different networks. You already separate them. There is no other way. Different networks cannot talk. Different VLANs, different virtual networks cannot talk. For them to talk, you need a router. You understand? So when you separate your department, for them to communicate, you need a router, or you need what we call a layer 3 switch, because a layer 3 switch works like a router. Now, for us now to make those two departments like in communications, we need a router. What does it mean, making them in communications? Right? Like you want one guy from HR to send emails to one of the guy maybe in marketing or IT. So it means their computers need to be able to communicate, right? But they're in different departments. How are you going to make them talk? You need a router or a layer 3 switch. And for today now, that router that you're going to bring, that you're going to buy, you need to configure what we call router on a stick. Because of router on a stick, different networks, different departments can talk, can communicate. This is the whole idea of today's lesson. So today's lesson, guys, you are going to learn how to connect different networks using one of the method or one of the network configurations called router on a stick, right? So you have your wireless access point, you got a switch, that switch has so many computers like connected to it from different departments. Now you wanna make those different departments talk. You can use the wireless access point, but from the wireless access point, you need to configure what we call router on a stick, right? So we're gonna bring a router now. What does it mean? You go to the shop, you buy your router, you bring it there, right? And you need now to connect your router to the switch. Remember, there are different like equipment. You're gonna take a straight cable. So I'm gonna plug it there. You must always be careful where you plug your cable, right? Yes. So there's a link, there's a cable between your router to the switch, right? So you want now this router to be able to make those two departments communicate, right? So what is the process? The process is like this, guys. You need what we call a trunk port. So this port from the switch, this one, this FA0/3, you need to make it a trunk port. Why you need to make this one a trunk port? Because you need a port that will connect different networks. So this port here, it's going to be your trunk port. So a trunk port, this is the port that allows networks or department to talk or to communicate. So you go to your switch, you make this one a trunk port. So we go, you're gonna say which port name, it's interface 0/3 switch port mode trunk this time. Don't say mode access. because this port will be used to connect networks, not to plug computers or devices. So switch port mode trunk. So this one will work as a trunk port. What does it mean by trunk port? This is a port that will connect networks. And you press what? Click enter. Right? Now you can also configure this because you have two VLANs. You can choose the VLANs that can travel using this port. You can also say switch port, the trunk allowed, VLAN 10, comma, VLAN 20, and you press enter. What does it mean? So you are telling this port, you're saying you fast Ethernet 0/3, you are going to connect networks, but you are going to allow only those two VLANs. So those two VLANs will be allowed. You can also change this allowed by denied and so on, right? So this line will allow you to let those three VLANs to communicate. Now, when you are done, you exit. So this is only the configurations that you need from this switch. This port first, that port where you're gonna plug the cable that will go to the router, you make it a trunk port, right? And when you are done now, guys, you go now to your router now. This is where you need to configure your router on a stick, right? Remember, router on a stick, so it's just a network configurations that allows you to connect different VLANs or different networks, right? So guys, you need to understand router on a stick comes with a benefit, or some of the benefits. The first one, it's cost, right? You don't need to buy so many cables to connect different networks, right? There's no need for you to buy many cables or to plug twice, because you have here two departments, you can plug here twice. There is no need for that. You can only use one link, right? So you can also define like router on a stick as like a network configurations that uses one port from the router to connect different networks or different VLANs, right? So guys, even when you are writing your CV from the summary, you are talking about your networking skills, it's always mention about your skills when it comes to router on a stick, right? So what we're gonna do now, there are only three things we're gonna do. First, we're gonna put this interface up. We're gonna create what we call sub-interfaces, and we are going to choose a protocol that will allow the VLANs to talk. So you go to your router, right? CLI, no, you press enter. Conft. So we go first to this interface. The interface. When you see the gigabits, it means it's over 1,000. It's the speed of this port. It's 1,024. So this port is more faster than the fast Ethernet. So if you see it says gigabit, it means the speed of sending and receiving data, it's 1,024. All right, but fast Ethernet, the maximum is 100 megabits per second. So you press enter. You need first to bring it up, means you need to activate it. You see it's red. Why? Because it's off. You need to bring it up by saying what? No shutdown. And you press enter. You see it showing green now. So the port is up. When your port is up, number two, what you're going to do now, you need to create sub-interfaces, right? Those sub-interfaces you are going to create, you need to know first how many VLANs do you have. Like here, we have two VLANs. So here we're going to create two sub-interfaces. So if you have 5 departments created from your router, from your switch, means you're gonna have 5 sub interfaces. If you have 10 departments created from your switch, means you're gonna have 10 sub interfaces from your router, right? Now, how to create your sub interfaces? So you just say like int gigabit 0/0/0. You repeat the same port here because the sub interfaces, they are just keys. Those are the keys of this port. So you repeat the name of the port first, and you say dot, followed by the ID number of the VLAN. Like HR, the ID was 10. Remember when you were creating VLAN for HR, the ID you chose, it was number 10. So you're gonna give this number here, so it has to match. So you press enter, right? Now we're gonna create the second one. Why? Because we have only 2 departments. So it's gonna be this one, but this time around, it's gonna be what? 20. But before even doing this, let me give it an IP address straight, because I don't wanna like come back. So when you create your sub interface, you can give it an IP address. IP address 192.168. Because it's coming from this network, .1.1. All right. And it's 255, but sometimes it's going to refuse because of one thing that we're going to see later on. Yeah. So configuring the IP routing line is only allowed if that interface. Yes, we need to configure first the protocols. As I said, the protocol needs to be determined, right? So we need a protocol that will allow us now to link VLANs. That protocol, how you're gonna do it? You must say encapsulation. Okay, just press tab, right? If you forgot, you can say the question mark. So it's followed by .1Q, followed by the name of the VLAN, the ID number. It was 10. So this basically it's what? So it's just a piece of software or a computer program or a protocol that will carry like information on how to link VLANs, right? So you need the encapsulations. Now you're gonna press enter. Now you can punch your IP, right? Now you exit. We're gonna go to the second sub interface. Yeah, I think it was this one. Oh, I'm trying. Okay, it was this one. You press enter again, like enter again, and the encapsulation, it's gonna be 20 here. You press enter, and your IP. Remember your IP from this one here. Your IP, this one for this network, right? This is I'm gonna use the blue ones. So it's the network, I think it was 2, and you press enter and you exit. Because now you are done, we're gonna test the connectivity between those 2 computers. But remember, because there is a router, you need to punch the default gateway, right? You can put a default gateway, but normally you need a default gateway. But let's give it a default gateway here, the same one. But remember, it was 1 there. And here, you need also like a default gateway. I think there it was 1, but there it was 2. Remember, default gateway, those are the IP address of your sub interface. For this blue network, the sub interface, the IP was 192.168.2.1. Now let's try to ping. Let's try to see now if those two networks can talk. All right? You can see now the communication happen. If you repeat again, right? Now you can see those two departments can communicate, right? So what you need now to do, guys, very easy. You need to practice, right? So this is how to create or how to configure what we call router on a stick. Very basic concept, but powerful, all right? You got your switch, you create a department. After creating those departments, you assign port to those departments. How you gonna configure your router on a stick because you want those departments to talk? You're gonna take one cable, you connect from your switch to the router. From the switch where you plugged your cable, that port must be a trunk port. What does it mean? That port will be used to link, to connect department or VLAN or virtual networks or virtual LANs. When you are done with your switch, right, you go now to your router where you plugged that cable from the switch. That port must be up. You make it up, right, by saying no shutdown. When that port is up, you need to create sub interfaces. So if you have two departments, two VLANs, you're going to create two sub interfaces. If you have 5 VLANs, 5 departments, you're going to create 5 sub interfaces. How to create those 5 sub interfaces, right? The interface may be a gigabit 0/0/0. You press enter, no shutdown. You repeat the same interface. You said the last one, you're going to say .10. Maybe if your VLAN was VLAN 10, you're going to say .10. If your VLAN was like 20, you're going to say .20. If it was 50, you're going to say .50. And when you are done, you need now to configure a protocol or a piece of software or a computer program that will allow you to carry what information about those VLANs. We call it encapsulations .1q. So you're gonna just say encapsulation space .1q space the ID number, the ID of the VLANs, and you are done. And you go to your routers or to your computers, you assign the default gateway, and you ping. The communications is done, right? So even if you have thousands of computers, remember about it. When you are dealing with router on a stick, you need sub interfaces, you need an encapsulation protocol, you need a trunk port, right? Very, very important, right? So what you need now to do, practice, practice, practice. Next video, we are going to discuss about layer 3 switch. How can you use another switch to replace the router, right? So sometimes you can use what we call a layer 3 switch that behaves like a router to connect department. That's going to be our next lesson. So thank you very much. If it's your first time, remember to register. You can contact me using my email address below or my WhatsApp number. Thank you very much.